Well, everybody, thank you so much for your patience. Technology issues are resolved as best as we'll get them for the moment. But I'd like to introduce you to Belinda Morton. Belinda Morton, I'm hoping I pronounce this correctly, Belinda, but are you in Yirrkala?
I am, yes.
And Yirrkala is in far eastern Arnhem Land?
Yeah, northeastern Arnhem Land. I've got a map coming up and I'll show you exactly where it is.
So, as you need to go through the PowerPoint, just tell me when to press the buttons and I'll go to the
All
next
right.
image. We're currently on the first slide with the kids in the hammock.
All right, so that's a picture from my play group. I am in a position called the family educator. I work with families and first teachers, and I will, as a part of the lecture, be talking about that, but I really wanted to give a good context. I know that you are studying Indigenous education and multiculturalism, and I guess I want to preface by saying this is a personal presentation. It's a really personal job. I'm here for personal reasons, and I guess the context that I'm speaking about is very much about Arnhem Land and about Yolngu. That's the name for Indigenous people who live in Arnhem Land. Brad, if you could go on to the next slide, people will be able to see what I look like. And I am wearing ears, and I do look like a muppet. I often do wear ears and tails to work, being an early childhood worker. Lived and worked up in the Territory. I moved from Brisbane in 2008. I'm secondary trained. I was a secondary teacher, working at a private Christian school, and then wanted to see change, moved to Brisbane, and then ended up in Arnhem Land and following my brother, who was a nurse up here at the time. I started by living in Elko Island, in a town called Gallawinku, and started at the clinic there, and then ended up down at the school, and finally ended up working at families as first teachers when it was introduced in 2011. If you go on to the next slide, This is my family. This is Christopher, my foster son. He's turned 12. I've chosen this photo because he proudly made a love heart out of his hair for me, and so he's a big part of my life and adds an extra element to being a Balliner, which is not an Indigenous person, up in Arnhem Land, because I get to live a lot of the challenges, I guess, and a lot of the beautiful aspects of culture that I'll go on to talk about today. We've also got a dog called Baywara, and thanks to the beautiful kinship and adoption system that operates in Arnhem Land, I'm also related to every other Yolngu. So every other Indigenous person from Arnhem Land I have a relationship with, and whether I've met them or not, through my adoption. And I have a skin name. My skin name is Gamanjan, and I have a clan, that's the Gulful clan, and that makes me connected, and it makes any Yolngu that I meet, as soon as they find out who I've been adopted by, it fits me into their world. So it shows, I guess, just a fracture of the complexity and the beauty of Yolngu culture, and the fact that they have a very vibrant and beautiful and intact system of living and understanding the world. And for white people, for Balliner up here, if you're not adopted, then you're not really a part of this world. If you go on to the next part of their world, I mean. If you go on to the next slide, Brad, this is where we live now. So northeast Arnhem Land, you'll see the big red dot is Darwin. And if you go right over to the eastern side, just above Root Island and Yallingborough, there's Yirrkala. So we live in a tropical paradise, about 34 probably outside at the moment, and there are pristine white beaches and crocodiles and turtles and buffaloes and all kinds of beautiful things. So it's known as a remote part of Australia, and often half the year it's cut off during wet season. We're living on River Jingle land, so that's the clan whose country Yirrkala is, and at the moment I think there's around 950 people that live in this community, the majority are Yolngu. There are some Balliner, like myself, teachers and nurses and people that work in services such as that live in the community too, and 18 short kilometres down the road is a mining town, which is called Nullarbor, which was established in, it's written there, in the late 1960s to support a bauxite mine, which is just down the road from Newcastle en route to Jimor country. And there's also a refinery at Port, which is about 40 kilometres west of here as well to get the alumina out. Yirrkala is quite famous and a well-known Indigenous community, has been really strong and been having a really strong culture. This partly for the art. Oh, sorry, next slide, Brad. I forget to do that every now and again. This picture is a picture of Christopher's grandmother and some of the artwork that she does. So very strong as a art centre here and multimedia centre. It's the home of land rights. I'll go into that in a bit more detail in a few minutes. The yidaki, or what's known down south as the didgeridoo, that kind of is a musical instrument which is indigenous to here, and many men play that instrument, including Christopher, all the time at our house, inside the house, whether or not. And we also have a really strong musical culture here. Dr. Yindi came from this community, still exists, with the band members that are still around and some new ones, and yeah, really amazing artists who kind of crossed over, I guess, into Western life and Western music. And there's also a yearly festival up here called the Garman Festival, which is about connecting connecting outside world to your culture, which we have the pleasure of being there for the first time this year. Can you still hear me, everybody? I feel like...
Yep. Yes.
Yep. Okay, all right. Steam on. If anyone has questions, Brad, just relay them on, but I'll just kind of go full force to start with, and then hopefully we'll have some time for some questions.
Belinda, there could be one disaster if I somehow run out of mobile phone credit partway through a 40-minute call.
Hey, how about I ring you back?
We'll revert to a student or we'll do something like that, but just keep going.
I can call, let me know when you hear that. I can call you back.
Okay.
Keep talking to me because I won't know, I'll just be talking by myself. All right, if you go on to the next slide. This is a picture of Christopher a couple of weeks ago. He went through his men's ceremony. So he became a man, which was a 4-day ceremony and included like traditions, I guess, and practices that have been practiced for thousands of years, and circumcised as a part of that. And now culturally he's stepped through into adulthood at the age of 11, and will enter into a whole new world and level of your knowledge, men's knowledge. So there is thousands and thousands of years of language, law, other law, kinship connection, spiritual beliefs, music and dance. And it's, I think largely because of the distance here from the rest of the world, it remains remarkably intact. For Yolmo, they live as part of or have under a moiety system, which means that there's, in the physical world, everything is classified as either dua or yiricha, and that means people, trees, the sun, the moon, rocks, the grass, like everything belongs to this system. And so with kinship, when a man marries a woman, there needs to be a dua and yiricha match, otherwise it's the wrong skin, it kind of really messes with the whole system. So when you are born, you follow the moiety of your father, and you're also born into a clan and with certain totems and skin names and responsibilities that come from your identity. And obviously they were created. There's a whole heap of literal laws with obligations and consequences and punishments, actually, if those laws are broken. There's a whole heap of law around how a brother and sister should interact. For example, once Christopher now is a man, and there's a certain way that he needs to interact with his sister, he won't say their names anymore, for example. Mother-in-laws don't talk to their son-in-laws ever. That's not allowed. There are also avoidance relationships, meaning that people that are wrong skin or should never have children together are actually never allowed to talk to each other directly, and really they're not meant to even stand next to each other. So it's interesting, and as an outsider coming in, there's a lot to learn, and sometimes, I think when you first come around it, it's bizarre. I remember working in the clinic at Gulliwinkel and ladies coming up and surreptitiously saying to me, "Have you seen so-and-so? It's their brother." And they're like, "I really need to go to the toilet. I've been waiting for 2 hours." But they can't be seen to even walk into a building where they might be going to go to the toilet because that's against their cultural law, and there are consequences and punishments for that. So, it's really different to downtown Wollongong. If you move on to the next slide, I guess that's kind of just, I've already said a lot of these things. There are reciprocal rights in relationships. People are, traditionally lived in clan groups, but with the evolution of townships and missions and these days actual towns that the government is supporting and trying to get people off homelands, all the clans are living next door to each other and amongst each other, and it causes a lot of the issues that we see, the social issues that we see. Obviously, people live a hunter-gatherer lifestyle. People can still live from the land here if they so desired, and if you have, the vehicles these days and fuel to be able to do that, as well as the rights to be able to hunt on a particular country. There are clan elders and the leaders are sovereign, and prior to first contact with white people, there were very strong trading relationships with people from Sulawesi or Makassans, and that worked really well for everybody involved. Next one, Brad.
Yes.
So there are many different language groups that still exist today, and dialects, although some languages are dangerous, definitely. There are also common languages that are used to communicate across clans. So the language spoken here is not the same as the main language at Gulliwinkel, but people can still understand each other and know common languages to be able to converse. And there's a really strong system of sign language also, so you need not speak often, and oftentimes people don't, and can still have whole conversations from across, an oral distance. It's phenomenal. And there are also, thousands of years of song and dance cycles as well that are seen at ceremonies like, for example. Okay, the next slide, colonisation. So that's kind of pre-white contact. I know that I didn't hear about colonisation as a concept until I went to university myself, and so I'm not sure about you guys, you're probably more enlightened, but I'll quickly just read this through. It's the forming of a settlement or colony by a group of people who seek to take control of territories or countries. It involves large-scale immigration of people to a new location and the expansion of their civilisation and culture into this area. Colonisation may involve dominating the original inhabitants of the area, known as the indigenous population. So that's not just a historical fact. If you look at that definition, it certainly covers a lot of the policies and activities that exist today, and that's kind of, I guess, an attack on your culture and life. We all okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, perfect. All right, colonisation in Arnhem Land. So obviously, when I was at school, and I lived when I was in year 8, the bicentenary, was that all? Bicentenary of Captain Cook's Landing happened, and we all went to Portland and looked at the tall ships and marvelled at how, white man came to settle Australia. And but while that was happening down south, people in Yirrkala, people in Arnhem Land were largely untouched, and the first contact with Europeans happened mainly in the 1930s, and it happened with a massive bang and made changes that have just kept rolling on, I guess. My adopted mother, who's now passed away, I remember hearing stories about how she came across to Gallowingu in a canoe. So that was, her experience of coming to a town was, and moving to that township, which was a mission at the time, was coming in a dugout canoe. So a lot of the first contact happened through Christian missions, and it was really isolated, so only the people in the areas near those missions were impacted, and a lot of people still live largely untouched on their homeland. I don't know who knows that Darwin was bombed by the Japanese in World War II, and there was a big worry, essentially, that there was going to be the yellow invasion, and so Yolngu was used by the government as a key way of defending against Japanese invasion. So I was actually reading a bit about it last night, about how a force of 51 Yolngu were collected and basically used as human fodder, as well as they were taught how to make Molotov cocktails and things like that, and go and raise Japanese supplies and blow things up and everything, so that, basically we did become a Japanese imperialist colonised land, and largely their role in that surveillance and first line of defence hasn't really ever been acknowledged widely, and you'll see that there's a researcher called an anthropologist who basically said there are three ways of colonisation, and the first is confrontation, which is invasion and brings disease, massacre and tribal warfare, as people stand up for themselves because someone's coming in and coming over their country, raping their women and taking what they want, moving in. Carceration, which is the segregation of Indigenous people into missions or reserves, and then assimilation, which is basically making people more like your own culture and lessening those differences, but on your own terms. So you can see there that although this picture is not from Arnhem Land, you can see that when people actually fought back against, invaders into their country, they were treated as, savage warriors and murderers and things like that. Whereas another lens would say that that's resistance. Onto the next page. There, so we're now on that's got a picture of a mission. Can you see that, Brad? Are you on the right one? Am I on the right one? Mine's better than? Okay. All right. So the 1950s and 60s, again, the government policy was assimilation. So that was, get everybody dressed the same way and teach everyone English and force children not to speak in the only languages that they knew, even to their families. And in 1977, there was the Australian government recognised dual custody of Arnhem Land, and the cynical view of that would be that it wasn't good for cattle grazing, and so they kind of went, oh well, let's just leave them all up there and together, and with the missionaries, but in recent times, and with the introduction of mining, a lot of that has been repealed. On to the next one. So in Arnhem Land, the results of assimilation and of colonisation continue today. So some issues such as overcrowding, unemployment and substance abuse are very real and very self-experiences every day. And the government still is pursuing an agenda of moving people from traditional homelands, which is where people actually can, be connected to their own country and, have agency over their own lives, and moving them into towns more and more. And this creates a fracture in identity, access to food and cultural practices. And as I said before, Yolngu weren't designed to all live together in a town, and so there are some big issues that come from that. And when I talk about overcrowding, I'm talking about 30 people living day to day in a 2-bedroom house, for example, or 3-bedroom house with 1 bathroom. So very real for the students that come to this school here and the families and the community. On the next slide. Just a quick one about the Northern Territory intervention, which was started in 2007, amazingly in response to a report that was about sexual abuse, and then all of a sudden in 2 weeks' time, soldiers moved into many communities, 20 communities in the Northern Territory. Literal soldiers came in with doctors and nurses to basically assess what was going on, I guess, in a way. A lot of people that I spoke to around about that time said that they felt like, and a lot of you all today believe that this was paving the way for a land grab, essentially, because until this point, and from 1977, as we just saw, Yulmul had the right, you had to get a permit to actually come onto Yulmul land in Arnhem Land and get permission from the elders, and the intervention actually removed that permit system and allowed the government and anyone else to come in. They abolished the CDP projects that were, quite useful for Yulmul. They, as part of that, schools like ours were meant to be working under a policy where children weren't allowed to speak their own language for the first 4 hours, or write or read for the first 4 hours at school. That's since gone away, which is great. Income management came in so that people on Centrelink payments, 60% of their welfare payments was not able to be accessed through cash, but had to be spent in certain ways on certain things, in certain sectors. So again, very much limiting people's human rights. The Racial Discrimination Act was suspended for all of the places that the intervention happened, which is hard to believe these days. And basically they expected Indigenous people to lease property under 99-year leases of their own land in order to get basic services and housing from the government. And they also compulsorily acquired quite a bit of land as a part of that. And then children were, like I say, doctors and nurses came in and they did heaps of health checks, and that's how I ended up coming in to work. Actually, I worked at the clinic following up children for that had received referrals, and the government decided there wasn't enough money or services to actually fix the things that they found out were wrong as part of the intervention, sadly. I think it was a bad idea, can you tell? Okay, on the next slide, Brad.
Just hold it there for a second. Any questions from the audience so far?
Maybe they already are aware of it, I'm not sure.
Can I just ask a question about the previous slide?
Audience,
do you understand the significance of the Community Development Employment Projects, the CDEP that was abolished by the government?
You're asking me?
Yes, can you just explain what that was? What sorts of work was
generated? Essentially I'm not so much talking about Yirrkala here, although it's the same issue. When we lived on Elko Island, it's an island that has, literally, and there are crocodiles around it, so you have to fly to get off. It costs, at least $800, to get to Darwin and back. And that's the only way you can kind of get somewhere is to fly. So it's, you're pretty much stuck there. And during the mission times, they had fisheries going and market gardens and, house women working as housemaids or whatever in the missionaries' houses. So it pretty much was good employment, and there was a timber mill and things like that in those days. But when the missionaries moved out and in the late 70s, started discrimination and everything, there actually will never be enough jobs in an island like Elko Island for everybody to be employed. And so CDP is like work for the dole, if you know what I mean. But there was a lot more agency and community choice. Actually, until the intervention, communities were administered and controlled by local councils. So actually Indigenous people making choices about their communities. But then with the intervention, they made super shires. And so now it's again like non-Indigenous people coming in, big, based in town, and then, sending out missives communities. So again, it's, I guess, another part of an outside force coming in and changing people's own choices for their own community.
So the government was paying a lot of people to do worthwhile jobs in their communities, and then the government said, sorry, we're no longer paying you, stop working, just receive the dole for doing nothing.
Well, that's right. Well, there are still forms of, like, we even have at our school here, I've got a picture coming up, and tell me, I'm probably taking way too long, we'll flip through. Work for the dole. However, it's draconian still, the way that it operates now, and and still there's not enough opportunities for everybody. So I mean, it's helpful to some people, but really not. You know, there will never be full employment under the structures that are existing at the moment. So
okay, I'll just put our audience to the test just for a second, audience. So can you raise your hand, please, if you think that suspending welfare payments, or at least cutting them back, I should be more specific, making 50% of your welfare quarantine, so it must be spent, for example, at the local supermarket, instead of spent on whatever you spend it. Do you think that's a good thing or not?
No.
Raise your hand if you think there's some merit in that idea.
That's what people do.
3 or 4 or 5 hands are sort of saying there's some merit. Is there some merit in that idea, Belinda?
Some young would definitely think that. I know that some women have said to me it's good because they know that, you know, that money is not going to be spent on cards or, you know, card games, that is gambling or things like that. The problem exists when white communities and people receiving welfare payments also having their income quarantined. No, they're not. It's actually a racist system, you know. I mean, I think if that was like that for everyone in Centrelink, getting Centrelink payments, then that's fair enough, but it's not. And you're dealing with, like, we're in this community, we're 18 kilometres from town. It costs something like over $60 to get a taxi. Like, because most people don't have, a lot of people don't have cars. If you're a single or young family trying to go into town to go shopping, it might cost you $100 to go into town and back before you actually do your shopping. And your Centrelink payment might be like $250 for 2 weeks. So it's like, it's very inhibitive.
Thank you. I'll be quiet now. Let's go to the next slide.
No, don't worry. Right, quickly, let's have a look at. So there's a picture of the refinery part. It's not actually the mine, but again, just referring to the fact that the Norman Boyd Township kind of was created, you know, we've got a Yolngu vice principal at the school here, and she said she, as a little girl, remembers, you know, the town being built and the mine coming, and she has, you know, she was old enough to be able to have those recollections now, and she said the next place that was built was the pub, and it's been the downfall of the community here. So there are some clans and families that receive, you know, significant royalties from the mine. However, not all people that live here do, and unfortunately there is a high level of substance abuse and alcohol addiction which exists, and that's easily accounted for and made available through the 5 places that you can actually go and buy alcohol in this tiny town. On the next slide, Brad, just where I need to move on a bit. Now getting on to kind of like, I guess, the school and children effects and outcomes of these things. So before Families at First Teachers program, which I worked for, was created, this was kind of the situation, and it still pretty much exists. So in an NPEC, very remote areas, they had the highest rates of low birth weight, this is in Australia, and often compared to other countries in the world. Highest infant mortality, highest rates of failure to thrive. That's where children, once they stop breastfeeding, actually don't grow at the level and the rates that they should. And that then affects brain function in life and development. Highest levels of anemia, so weak blood is what they call that here, and highest child protection substantiation. So children being reported and then the case being, yes, you know, there is a welfare issue here and then being put into care, like my foster son. On the next one there, another kind of getting more again back to education outcomes. So there's also the lowest participation rates in preschool programs, lowest rates of school attendance in Australia, and the lowest NAPLAN achievement scores, which is hardly surprising given that most children actually learn in languages that aren't English in most remote areas. But anyhow, the government doesn't care about that, and significant disengagement from schools by both children and parents. And you can't really why when there's overcrowding and high levels of chronic disease and so on, especially for schools that speak English and teach English. On the next page, you'll see a quote from Dr. Unipingu. So he was the leader of the indie band, and he was also the principal of this school. He's passed away a number of years ago, sadly, but he's remembered every day here, and probably worth me reading this. So I want to talk about strengths, either in English or in your mother speaking domain, that's Indigenous languages. We learn from our elders that language is sacred. Your kids think in their own language, which can then inform them about English, about its meaning and its values. I consider your children in your school to be as clever as anyone else in the wide world, and I don't want that cleverness left outside the classroom door. Not for my kids or my grandkids. They should have equal rights, the same rights as any kids in the world, whether they're Chinese or Ballada, they're equal rights to learning their own language. And so that is up on the walls in my school everywhere, and this school is a bilingual school. Can you still hear me?
Yes, go
ahead. Yep, okay. Okay, we're on to the next slide now. So just talking a little bit about bilingual education. So at this school, there's a STEP model, which means that in preschool and in transition or preparatory year, grade 1 and 2, children are learning predominantly in Duwaya school, so that's one language that's spoken here. And we have a resource centre which has a library and has people still today making resources in that first language, books and audio books and songs and things like that. And then, so they have actually a qualified teacher in that class, so that we have a number of normal qualified teachers in this school, but predominantly, and in most other bilingual schools, it will be a non-Indigenous teacher that's in the school classrooms, but there's also assistant teachers, so that means lesser qualified Indigenous staff. So they are the ones who convey the lesson, essentially, to the students in the younger years, and they work as a team to plan and incorporate language. They still will hear English, they still will, learn to read English, but that gradually, English becomes a focus later on after those children have become established in their mother tongue, or not mother tongue, but the school language, the language spoken here at the school. There also is a cultural curriculum here at this school, so we have golfers or times that the kids will get together across the school, so all age levels, and learn about particular content as a group. So not, girls go here or young kids go here and older children go there. And there's a big learning on country program too, so children going out on camps and doing a lot of work on country and learning that way. And there's also Garma Maths, which is, you will have a base 5 system. So I've got a picture from my playgroup there, a turtle that every day pops out some ping pong balls, and we count to 5 in language, because that's how you'll collect and count the eggs that they eat of the big green sea turtles, and then counting groups of 5 that way in language. So the Garma Maths system is taught here before, I guess, literacy and numeracy in a Western way that we would understand from our education. If that all makes sense, hopefully. On to the next slide. So just a quick about bilingual education. In the 1980s, there were 21 bilingual programs in the NT. There were 9 left in in 2008 because the government stopped funding a lot of those. And in 2009, as I said before, the first 4 hours in English policy, when kids learn the best and are most likely to be at school, not in the afternoons, was set aside for English language tuition only. And now there are only 3 Aboriginal bilingual programs left in the Northern Territory, which is bizarre because probably in Newcastle they're teaching Indigenous languages at high schools because there's this big push in the Australian curriculum to teach Indigenous languages in mainstream school, while, up here they have those languages intact and schools want that and communities want that, but everything's about NAPFAN, unfortunately, which is in English. So, that's the state of play at the moment. Now, let's get on to first pictures. On the next slide, you'll see some pictures from my playgroup. So, I'm secondary trained, and in the Territory, you can kind of, move within the education system quite easily without qualifications if you get the practical experience, I guess. Families as First Teachers was brought in 2011 in a number of communities that were intervention towns, and was designed to support families to support their children to get them into school when they turned 5. Are you still there?
Yes.
Yep, okay, good. Sorry. I'll explain some pictures there. It's a dual generation approach, and so children aren't allowed to come, or they're not meant to come, I'm going to let them, come without a parent, because I'm meant to be, with my colleague, teaching parents and building their capacity at the same time as teaching the children. So you'll set up Play-Doh or painting stations or whatever for the children, but the parents are encouraged to actually work with their children and speak in language and read with their children. We do a lot of excursions. You'll see there, we're at the fire station. We do a lot of on-country, so you'll see the kids in the ocean having a bit of a swim there. And the focus really is on, the federal government supports it because they think they want all the kids to be learning English as soon as possible and getting them to sit down quietly on a chair so they're ready for school. But there are ways to subvert that. I think it's more important for kids to actually just be kids and learn what it is to be normal first. But anyhow, on to the next slide. These are the different aspects of that. So we provide an early learning program, so for 0 to 4-year-olds. We engage with the community. That's a big part of what we do. So when I moved here 6 months ago, I made it my business to go and try and meet every single child in the community and family and encourage them to come and be part of FAST. We're also meant to have a profile within the school so that I guess the upper years are cognizant of the work that we're doing and that we are preparing children to come to school. We do a lot of interagency work, so trying to develop and enhance families' understanding about health or financial literacy or whatever. I will get people in from other agencies to come, or substance abuse. I'll get the guy from NP Health to come in and talk about ganja or the impact of passive smoking on children and things like that. Sorry, marijuana. Yes. So as we'll set up playgroups in the morning, but also have little sessions which are aimed at the adults to, on different topics like internet scams. Everyone's on Facebook and people are trying to sell them iPads and people hand over their, details and get brought in for thousands. So these are real day issues here. And this is the bit that's really close to my heart, is to have a culturally responsive program. So, it's very important to me that these children know who they are as normal children and they're confident in their own language and their own skin before they kind of, have to venture out into the world. So we try and foster that as much as possible in our playgroup, we've got on the walls weavings and paintings, and we sing in traditional songs and in language when we do circle time and counting and things like that in the morning. And this is the key part for the government, transition to preschool program. So they want kids ready and to go, and families prepared to get their children to come to preschool every day. So this term we have all the children that will be going to preschool next year going up and visiting 1 hour a week, and we do swimming with the preschool, and they used to visit us every week last term, so that, it makes that transition a lot easier. And reporting back to the government. I spend a lot of my time filling in databases and, how many people I've approached and how many people, we have referred in or out. It's a big part of working within this program.
We've got a couple of minutes left.
Yeah, okay, so just quickly, I will, actually that's probably enough. I'll just, if you flick through this, the next, you can see a picture of the outside. It's an old preschool that we work in, so that's the playgroup there, and the mum made the banners, and you'll see the timetables that we have every week. We've made a women's fitness class for mums to get out and to feel good about themselves and do something for themselves. You'll see on the excursion day we go to lots of different places. So one of the significant ones we've been lately, we went and had a play session at the Women's Safe House. So that's like a women's shelter in town. And after that, the staff there have said they've just had so many people coming because, we took away the shame factor of it, and people didn't realise that it was death, and then they didn't have to be belted before they actually were allowed entrance into the shelter, just if they needed to get away or did feel like, someone was going to go out drinking and something could happen. So a lot of our children and families now access that service. So it's important to me that, the more people that live right near a town that has services actually feel like that's there for them as well. And if, Brad, if you just click through the next couple of slides really quickly, you'll just see pictures of different things.
It would be so hard to imagine kids from our local Adventist school going off to women's shelter as a part of an excursion, so that's quite remarkable. Go on.
Yeah, no, look, I am passionate about these, linking these families with, kind of to cry, but with, things that white people take for granted. Like we hitched up the trailer a few weeks ago and put all of our kids' bikes and everything into the trailer and drove into town and just let them ride around the skate park because no one goes to use it because it's a shame job to go into town. People don't have vehicles to go into town, least of all, young mothers, they're probably some of the most disadvantaged groups in the community. So we actually went last term and with mums and dads, we recorded a CD in the local studios in town, and now the kids sing and dance to that every day. We can send that out to Homeland so that people that don't even have this program or have teachers that come to their community, the babies out there actually can hear, and sing along in their own language. And if you flip through the next couple as well, you'll just see some of the resources that we've made as a group. So with mums, I've got a Facebook page so the mums can see what's going on, not just mums, but there's lots of grandmothers that come, and some dads do sometimes too, and I just let them know day to day about what we've done. I'll stick photos up about where we've been. So that's our little Facebook page, and you'll see on the next one, Brad, called The Opposites book. That's just a book we made a couple of weeks ago to teach some concepts to kids. The next slide is a page from that as well, so that I actually have to write in English, obviously, even though I do know quite a bit of language, and then we work with the mums to translate that, and then we publish those books and they can take them home because they're pictures of their own children. We've experienced what down is and up is, and we've talked about it in language, and then you're taking it home so that parents have got something to use with their children. I'll stop talking there. There is a few more slides, but I do want to just see if anyone has any questions or, agree with things or, I'm interested to know. Or how does this affect you guys? Does it affect you?
So some people may have to leave. We understand if you need to,
Yeah, sure.
to stand up and go. Are there any questions from the audience?
affected her as someone working in the system, you know, seeing how they're treated racially. I know she's been adopted in, but...
Yeah.
No,
So the question is, how has it affected you personally, being involved in this sort of work, Belinda?
It's made my life. I wouldn't be anywhere else, and like I, you know, grew up with the dream to get married and have kids and all of that, and that wasn't in God's plan for me. And so I'd like to say that instead of giving me one loving person to love me, he actually, like husband, by going to Elco and kind of being adopted there and finding my life here, I have, you know, 2,000, and then when I moved here, another 1,000 people to love, basically, and for them to love me. And so you know, you can be adopted just in name or superficially or whatever, but I believe that I'm quite integrated into this life and into this culture. I always go to ceremony and dance and pay my respects in that way. I've been to literally hundreds of funerals of people that I know. This morning I found out that one of the mums from Play Group lost her twins this morning. We had notification over the weekend, this is why my colleague isn't here talking to you today, that a relatively young woman passed away in her homeland today, so she's not at work. My colleague, you know, the body's getting flown out to Darwin today. Death is a constant issue that you have to deal with. Compounded trauma, intergenerational trauma is just a daily fact of life. I live with a traumatised child, which, you know, personalises things even more, I guess. He came to me when he was 6.5 and he'll be with me till he's 18, but, you know, the experiences that he's had in his life, because he was born to parents that are equally traumatised, it's generational and ongoing. So, yeah, but it's also the most joyous place for me to be. I love it so much, I can't even explain, and I get so much from it, but it's also heartbreaking to know that the babies that you're working with are living in houses where people are just off their heads all the time, or, you know, mothers are being beaten by, you know, their partners after they come back after they've been drinking. It's very intense. It's important to get out, I think, at times, and, you know, as a Christian, you rely on God as well, and, you know, believe that, well, actually there's a massive Christian revival happening here at the moment, so that's really interesting to see as well. People are more evangelical than I've ever seen in my life, so yeah, it's an interesting place to be.
Lynn, I'm sure I speak for everyone. Wave your hand if you agree that it's been a fascinating presentation. We've loved your enthusiasm and the bright, beautiful pictures that you've shown us as well, and your positive spirit throughout. Lynn, I'll talk to you afterwards after I've said goodbye
No worries,
to everyone here, but thanks for persevering with our issues. Lindsay will probably wait
No
for the
worries.
back of the room at some point. We'll give you a call afterwards, so thanks, Lindsay.
I didn't know Dee was there. I might
She's
have
been here
said
the whole
something
time.
I said.
Yeah.
Oh no!
Yeah, so that's good.
Thank you
And
for
so
all
just for the
yeah,
record,
your
if any of
feedback.
our students here would like to come and do a prac teaching placement with you,
Come on up.
Is that possible? Do prac teachers go
Yes.
that far?
Yes, they do. I have them live with me on occasion. And the whole other education for them, but yes, it's possible for sure. Yep.
Okay, thanks Linda very much. And I'll talk to you soon.
And